The $2 million mistake: what delaying retirement costs high earners. Here's something that might surprise you. One of the most common questions about retirement planning from high earners is this: how much wealth am I actually losing by not having started earlier? When you run the numbers, the answer is usually somewhere between 1.5 to 2.5 million in lost wealth. Not because of bad investments, not because of market crashes, simply because of delayed action. The difference between someone who started saving at 25 versus 35 isn't just 10 years. It's often 7 figures in retirement wealth. The difference between capturing your full employer match versus contributing just enough to participate can cost you over $800,000 in future value. These aren't theoretical scenarios. This is the actual math that plays out in real financial plans every single day. Today, I'm breaking down the 3 most devastating costs of delaying retirement savings, costs that hit high-income earners especially hard. And then I'm giving you 3 specific actions you can implement immediately to maximize your wealth-building timeline. Because here's what matters: you can't get back the years you've lost, but you can prevent losing one more day. Let's get into it. Let's start with cost number 1. It's the big one: the compound interest penalty. I need you to understand something about compound interest that most people miss. It's not linear, it's exponential. And the difference between starting at 25 versus starting at 35 isn't just 10 years of contributions, it's literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let me show you exactly what I mean. I'm going to introduce you to Alice and Bob. Both make solid 6-figure incomes. Both smart, capable people. Alice starts investing at 25. She puts away $5,000 a year into her retirement accounts. She does this consistently until she's 65. That's 40 years of contributions. The total money she puts in is $200,000. Bob waits. He's busy. He's got student loans, and he tells himself he'll start saving when he's 30. Then 30 becomes 32, then 35, and he finally starts at 35 years old. He also contributes $5,000 a year until 65. That's 30 years of contributions, and his total money in is $150,000. So Bob contributed $50,000 less than Alice. That's a meaningful difference, but not devastating. Here's where it gets brutal. At retirement, assuming a 7% annual return, which is actually conservative for a diversified growth portfolio, Alice has just under $1 million. Well, Bob has around $470,000. Wait, let me say that again. Bob contributed $50,000 less, but he ended up with over $500,000 less at retirement. That's not a typo. That's the power of compound interest, or in Bob's case, the devastating cost of missing it. Here's what most people don't understand. The first $5,000 Alice invested at 25. It had 40 full years of compound. At 7% annually, it grew roughly $75,000 all by itself. Just that one contribution of $5,000. Bob's earliest contribution, it only had 30 years to compound. He never got that 40-year window. Every single one of Alice's contributions had more time to grow than Bob's best contribution. That 10-year head start is exponential growth he can never, ever get back. This isn't about working harder or working smarter. This is pure math, and the math is unforgiving. And the research backs this up. Charles Schwab put out research in 2024 showing that with 40 years to save, compounding can make the difference between insufficient retirement funds and building a nest egg of over $1 million. Their emphasis: even a small amount of money invested each month makes a huge difference in retirement income, thanks to compounding. Fidelity's research shows the same pattern. NerdWallet ran the numbers. A $10,000 initial investment at 6% annually becomes over $57,000 over 30 years. That's a 5.7x growth on the principal alone. Every year you delay reduces that multiplier significantly. Here's where this reality hurts for six-figure earners. Let's say someone starts saving 15% of their salary at age 30, averaging about $20,000 a year over their career as their income grows. They do this consistently for 30 years until age 60. At a 7% growth, they retire with approximately $1.7 million. Now let's say someone else waits until 40 to start. Same saving rate, same average $20,000 annual contribution, same 7% return. They contribute for 20 years until 60. They retire with approximately $820,000. The difference? Well, both people saved the same percentage of their income once they started. Both were disciplined savers. One just started 10 years earlier, and the results? Over $1 million more in retirement. That's the cost of a 10-year delay, even when you're making great money and saving aggressively once you start. The best time to start was years ago. The second best time is today. Cost number 2 is even more painful because this one is just leaving money on the table, missing your employer match. Here's a stat that blows my mind every time I see it. 41% of workers who have access to a 401k or employer retirement plan don't contribute anything, not a dollar. They have free money sitting there and they're saying no thanks. And it gets worse. Among people who do contribute, many aren't contributing enough to get the full employer match. They're leaving thousands of dollars a year unclaimed. Here's how this works. Most companies, about 98% of companies that offer a 401k, also provide a matching contribution. The average match, according to Fidelity, who manages about 25,000 retirement plans, is 4.7% of your salary. The most common formula? Dollar for dollar up to 3% of your salary, then 50 cents to the dollar for the next 2%. So, if you contribute 5% of your salary, your employer adds 4% in free money. Let me put real numbers to this. Let's say you make $150,000 a year. Your company offers a 6% match on the higher end, but not uncommon. If you contribute 6%, they give you $9,000 a year in free money. That's $9,000 you did not have to work for. It just shows up because you click the button on your benefits portal. Now let's say you delay starting your 401k for just 5 years, ages 30 to 35. A direct loss of employee contribution over these 5 years is $45,000. But remember compound interest from cost number 1. That $9,000 a year invested at 7% over 30 years grows to approximately $850,000. You left $850,000 on the table by not filling out a form. If you make $200,000 with a 6% match, the math gets even more painful. 5 years of delay costs you about $1.1 million in future value. Here's an even more common scenario: partial participation. Someone making $150,000 contributes just 2% to their 401k. They get the $3,000 match on their 2% contribution, but their employer would have matched up to 6%. They're missing the other 4%. That's $6,000 a year in free money they're declining. Over 30 years at 7% growth, that missing $6,000 annually becomes approximately $567,000 in lost wealth. Think about it. This is literally turning down a 4% raise every single year for your entire career. For someone making $480,000 with a typical 4% employer match, that's $19,200 a year. Delaying for even 10 years means significant lost wealth. Those 10 years of $19,200 contributions, if invested at 7% and allowed to grow for the remaining 25 years until retirement, would be worth over $1.4 million. This pattern is common with high earners. The assumption is often, I'll max it out later when things settle down. But later never comes. Or when it does, the most valuable years have already passed. This isn't about market timing. This isn't about picking the right stocks. This is about claiming compensation you've already earned, and somehow it gets overlooked. Cost number 3 is more subtle but absolutely devastating: lost tax advantages and strategic flexibility. When you delay retirement savings, you're not only just losing compound growth and employer matches, you're compressing your contributions into fewer years, and that eliminates your ability to optimize taxes strategically. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you're in the 35% tax bracket. That's $400,000 to $600,000 in taxable income for married couples filing jointly. If you max out your 401k at $23,500 in 2025, you get an immediate tax deduction. That's $23,500 that doesn't get taxed. Your immediate tax savings, $8,225. That's $8,225 back in your pocket every year for 30 years of your career. That's $246,750 in tax savings. But here's where it compounds. If you invest those annual tax savings of $8,225 in a taxable brokerage account at 7% growth over 30 years, that alone grows over $775,000. You created $750,000 in additional wealth purely from tax arbitrage. Starting late doesn't just cost you tax savings. It eliminates your ability to be strategic about your retirement accounts. When you start at 25 and you have 40 years, you can build a diverse mix of account types. Traditional 401k for immediate tax deductions, Roth IRA in your lower income early years, HSA contributions that grow tax-free for healthcare, and taxable brokerage accounts for flexibility. This gives you incredible power in retirement. You can pull from traditional accounts up to the top of a lower tax bracket, then switch to Roth for the rest. You can manage your taxes strategically. But if you start at 45, you're trying to make up for lost time by cramming money into whatever accounts you can. You don't have the luxury of diversification. You don't have the time to let Roth accounts grow for decades. Let me talk about one account type that almost nobody optimizes: the health savings account. If you have a high deductible health insurance plan, you can contribute to an HSA. For 2025, that's $8,550 for a family. And this account is the most tax advantaged account in the tax code. Contributions are tax deductible, like a 401k, grow tax-free, like a Roth, and withdrawals for medical expenses are tax-free, better than both. No other account offers all three. If you max out a family HSA for 30 years, $8,550 a year at 7% growth, you end up with approximately $800,000 tax-free for healthcare. Remember from the research, a 65-year-old couple needs $395,000 to $600,000 for retirement healthcare costs. An HSA maxed over your career covers this entirely with no tax bill. But you can only contribute $8,550 a year. You can't make up for lost years. If you delay starting for 10 years, you've permanently lost $300,000 to $400,000 in tax-free medical funds. For someone in a 37% tax bracket making $480,000, every year of delayed maxing out of 401k costs about $8,700 in immediate tax savings. Over 20 years of delay, that's $174,000 in tax savings never captured, money that could have been invested and grown. Plus, without starting early, there's no opportunity to build a Roth IRA in lower income years. No time to maximize an HSA. Almost no tax diversification. The entire retirement ends up funded by traditional 401k money, meaning every dollar withdrawn gets fully taxed as ordinary income. That's hundreds of thousands more in lifetime taxes compared to starting strategically from the beginning. Okay, so we've covered the damages: compound interest loss, missed employer matches, and lost tax advantages. For someone making $300,000 to $500,000, delaying retirement savings by just 10 years can cost you $1.5 to $2.5 million. That's not an exaggeration. That's math. But here's the good news. If you're watching this right now, you can stop the bleeding today. You can't get back the years you've lost, but you can prevent losing any more. So let me give you 3 specific actions you can take this week, not next month, not next year, this week to start fixing this. Action number 1, capture your full employer match today. This is the easiest win you'll ever get. Log into your benefits portal, find your 401k plan, and look up your employer match formula. Most commonly, it's matching up to 4 to 6% of your salary. Set your contribution to at least that percentage. If they match 6%, contribute up to 6%. I don't care if you're planning to increase it later. I don't care if you need to look at your budget first. Do this first, then figure out the rest. Because here's the reality. Every paycheck that goes without capturing that match is money you're literally throwing away. It's a guaranteed 50% to 100% immediate return on your contribution. Where else in your life do you get that? If you make $200,000 and your employer matches 5%, that's $10,000 a year in free money. Over 25 years, that's over $630,000 in future wealth. Don't leave it unclaimed. Call your HR department if you need to. Most companies can make this change effective immediately or by the next pay period. There's no excuse to wait. Action number 2, automate your contributions and set up annual escalations. Here's a common pattern. People start contributing 3% to 5% to their 401k, and that percentage never changes. They get a 15% raise 2 years ago. They're still only contributing 5% when they could have easily afford to bump it up 8% or 10% without impacting their lifestyle. Don't rely on yourself to manually increase it. You won't. You'll forget, or you'll convince yourself you need the money elsewhere. Instead, set up automatic escalations. Most 401k plans have a feature where your contribution percentage increases automatically each year. Set it to increase by 1% or 2% every January or every time you get a raise. If you're currently contributing 5%, set it to go to 6% next January, then 7% the following year until you hit at least 15% of your income. Here's why this works. When you get your annual raise, you barely notice the difference because the increase in savings happens at the same time. You're not losing money from your paycheck. You're preventing lifestyle inflation from eating your raise. For high earners, this is critical. If you make $150,000 and get a $20,000 raise to $170,000, and you increase your 401k contributions from 10% to 12% at the same time, you're now saving $20,400 annually instead of $15,000. That's an extra $5,400 in retirement savings. But your take home still went up to $10,000 after taxes. You win twice. Automate this. Set it and forget it. Let the system do the hard work. Action step number 3, if you have access to an HSA, max it out and invest it. Here's what most people do wrong with HSAs. They treat them like a checking account or for current medical expenses. They contribute a bit, spend it immediately, and never let it grow. That's leaving massive money on the table. If you have a high deductible health plan and HSA access, here's the strategy. First, contribute the maximum. For 2025, that's $4,300 for individuals and $8,550 for families. Second, pay your current medical expenses out of pocket. I know this feels counterintuitive, but stay with me. Third, invest the HSA funds. Most HSAs offer investment options just like a 401k. Put that money in index funds or diversified portfolios. Fourth, let it grow tax-free for decades. Why does this work? Because the HSA is the only triple tax advantage account. You get a deduction going in, it grows tax-free, and withdrawals for medical expenses are tax-free forever. In retirement, you'll have healthcare costs. Everyone does. Medicare premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, long-term care potentially. If you've built up to $500,000 or $800,000 in an HSA over your career, you can pay for all that tax-free. This is especially powerful for high earners in high tax brackets. You're getting a 35 to 30% tax deduction on contributions, then never paying taxes again on that money. And here's the kicker. After age 65, you can withdraw from an HSA for non-medical purposes. It just gets taxed like a traditional IRA. So worst case, it's as good as a 401k. Best case, it's completely tax-free for medical expenses. If you're not maxing your HSA and you have access to one, you're giving up on one of the most powerful wealth building tools available. The math is clear. Starting early and staying consistent beats high income without discipline every single time. The math doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care that you were planning to start next year. It just compounds either in your favor or against you. The good news, if you're making six figures, you have the income to course correct, but it requires action. For someone who's delayed, it might mean saving 35 to 40% of your income instead of 15%. That's dramatically harder, but it's the mathematical reality. Every month you delay makes this steeper, but every month you contribute makes it easier. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just watch this video and move on. Don't tell yourself, I'll handle it next year. Take action this week. Capture your employer match. Set up automatic escalations. Max your HSA if you have one. Your 65-year-old self is depending on your today self to make the right call. If you found this valuable, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment, and let me know which of these 3 actions you're committing to this week. Stay informed, stay empowered, and stay successful. I'll see you in the next one.